Welcome to According to Sam, folks. This is episode 217. Thank you guys for tuning in and listening. Hope you had a great week. I'm going to get back into what we were talking about in the last podcast. I left a lot on the table. We were talking about our completely fair and impartial justice system. We're also going to be talking about our completely fair and democratic elections and our election system today. I have a lot to cover with you guys, so let's get right into it. I want to first start off with this. Yesterday was the 80th anniversary of D-Day. President Biden was in France. He gave a speech there in front of the last remaining veterans of that battle, and it was really interesting. I don't know if you guys remember this article that I shared with you 2 months ago, just 2 months ago in April. This article came out in Politico, and the headline there, France talks tough on Ukraine while gobbling up more Russian gas. That's sweet LNG. France has paid Russia over 60 million euros this year for liquefied natural gas, new data shows. Like I said, this article came out on April 11th. Brussels, put your money where your mouth is. Such grumblings what is that? Percolating. Such grumblings is percolating across Europe as new data reveals France is quietly, France is quietly ramping up gas payments to Russia. And I was thinking to myself, thinking about this article while I was listening to Joe Biden give this address in Normandy. And he's framing it all about Russia and how Russia is, they're the new Nazis, let alone that, Russia actually helped defeat the Nazis. His audience, especially his audience here in America, they don't know that. They don't care about that. I mean, he can say whatever to them, but he was framing this D-Day anniversary and, talking about Russia being a threat to Europe now. They're the new threat like the Nazis, and Macron's gobbling up all their gas and buying gas from them. And I was thinking to myself, I wonder what Macron is thinking about as he's there listening to Biden give this speech, knowing that he's buying gas from the new Nazis. But anyway, let's get into today's podcast. This has nothing to do with today's podcast. Today's podcast is about our completely fair and impartial justice system and our completely fair and democratic elections. And if you believe that, I got a bridge in what does they say? Oceanfront property in Arizona is what George Strait said. that I got for you if you believe that our justice system is fair and impartial, and that our election system is fair and democratic. Nothing could be further from the truth. Spies Who Lie. You guys remember this story in 2020, the 2020 election? And the Hunter Biden laptop came out just before the election. And all of these intelligence spies, 51 of them, came out and said that the Hunter Biden laptop had the hallmarks. They didn't say it was Russian disinformation. It had the hallmarks. The hallmarks of Russian disinformation is what they told us. So let's talk a little bit about the justice system, getting back to why Donald Trump was indicted a few weeks ago in New York. And if you understand that case, and it's pretty complicated and nuanced if you don't understand this stuff, but the misdemeanor charges that have a 2-year statute of limitations, which had already expired, these are bookkeeping charges. But what Alvin Bragg did was the novel legal theory is that he took this federal election crime, which he said that Donald Trump committed a federal election crime. What was the federal election crime? Is that he made a donation to himself because he paid to hush up Stephanie Clifford before the election. So the $130,000 that was paid was a donation, an illegal donation to the campaign. That's what Donald Trump, that's what raised it to a felony and why you're able to call Donald Trump a convicted felon now because of this federal election part, that he interfered in the election because of this illegal contribution of $130,000 that was paid to Stephanie Clifford. The federal election law, it talks about a in-kind contribution, and an in-kind contribution is a contribution that is not direct dollars. It's not a check, but it's something that is done to benefit the campaign, and it's a contribution in kind. Give you an example. Say I'm a photographer, and you need some photographs taken for your campaign, and I do the pictures for your campaign, and I tell you it's pro bono, it's free. I'm going to take these pictures from you. What federal election law says is that you have to look at the value of me taking those pictures, what I charge other clients as a professional, a photographer, assess a value, and that value is a donation in kind. So I ask you, when these 51 intelligence agents, spies, lied for Joe Biden to hide the Hunter Biden laptop right before the election, how is that not a in-kind contribution to the Biden campaign? Why is Trump, in our completely fair and impartial justice system, why is he being indicted for an illegal contribution before the 2016 election, but these guys can make an in-kind contribution to Joe Biden before the 2020 election? And how does that make sense to you? And this guy, it's funny because yesterday, first of all, Bob Gates, this is someone else tweeted this out, and then Michael Hayden retweeted it. Bob Gates was the CIA director under William Bill Casey, who was he was Ronald Reagan's campaign manager. But after Ronald Reagan won in 1980, Bill Casey became the DCI, the Director of Central Intelligence. And his number 2 was this guy, Bob Gates. Bob Gates, when Donald Rumsfeld was fired by, not fired, he resigned. Donald Rumsfeld resigned after the 2006 election when Democrats, they slaughter Republicans in that election. That's when Nancy Pelosi becomes the first female Speaker of the House. And then in response to that, George Bush says, because the Iraq War was the biggest issue in that election. So George W. Bush says that we're going to change course because the electorate is obviously unhappy with the course that we are going with the war in Iraq. So he accepts Rumsfeld's resignation, and then he brings on his father's director of Central Intelligence, because this guy was the number 2 in Central Intelligence in the Reagan administration. And he ran Iran-Contra. This guy ran Iran-Contra. He ran the guns to Nicaragua and the cocaine back into the United States. Bob Gates here. So George W. Bush, then Bob Gates when George H.W. Bush is elected in 92, or in 88, then he made Bob Gates his DCI, Director of Central Intelligence, but he was the number 2 in Reagan, ran all of Iran-Contra. And then George W. Bush, the son, in 2006, after he loses that election, then he accepts Rumsfeld's resignation, and then he makes his father's DCI the Secretary of Defense. And then when Obama is elected, he keeps Bob Gates on as Secretary of Defense. This guy who ran Iran-Contra. So this woman tweets out this quote from Bob Gates. Let's read it. Donald Trump is stubbornly uninformed about the world and how to lead our country and government, and temperamentally unsuited to lead our men and women in uniform. He is unqualified and unfit to be commander-in-chief. Robert Gates, and it says former Secretary of Defense and former DCI. Why don't you put DCI on there, Gates? Because this guy, when he's one of the 51 intelligence guys that told us Hunter Biden's laptop was Russian disinformation, the hallmarks of Russian disinformation in 2020, and gave Joe Biden that in-kind contribution. So Bob Gates is one of those 51 people. But so is Michael Hayden here. Michael Hayden, who is tweeting out this tweet from Bob Gates and basically agreeing, he's co-signing Bob Gates' statements about Trump. Michael Hayden's also DCI. Actually, Michael Hayden is here on the cover of this New York Post edition, where Spies Who Lie. This is Michael Hayden right here. Michael Hayden. So Michael Hayden retweets the quote from his buddy and former DCI, Bob Gates, another CIA director. I agree. These clowns, I started laughing at this. Why would anybody take your word, Bob Gates, about how unfit Trump is and all this stuff? Why would anybody take your word? Michael Hayden, you guys lie. Y'all are some liars. Liars. Why would anybody believe anything that Michael Hayden and Bob Gates has to say about anything? Are you crazy? And then it's a funny thing because, this was back in the Trump administration, but remember the meeting in Helsinki where they're like, oh, you believe Putin over these guys? I don't believe Putin or these guys, quite frankly, but if that's the choice that I have to make, I'll take Putin over these guys. And everyone was like, I can't believe Trump believes Putin over these guys. These guys. Can't believe that. Oh, you can't believe that? Carol Quigley was Bill Clinton's teacher at a Jesuit Georgetown. He was a professor there at Jesuit Georgetown. When I talk about these Jesuit schools, I like to let people know that these are Jesuit schools, because a lot of times people don't know that Georgetown is a Jesuit school. I like to point out how many of these guys, graduated from Jesuit institutions. Like this guy, John Brennan. He went to Fordham University in New York, which is a Jesuit school. Bill Casey, the DCI, who was Ronald Reagan's campaign manager and then became his DCI. He also went to Jesuit Fordham University, where John Brennan went. Leon Panetta here went to Jesuit Santa Clara here in California. Jesuit Santa Clara is where Panetta went, but that's also where Nancy Pelosi went and Gavin Newsom went. They all went to Jesuit Santa Clara. So I like to point out these Jesuit schools and let you guys know when I'm talking about a Jesuit school. So Carroll Quigley was a professor at Jesuit Georgetown, and he wrote a very famous book called Tragedy and Hope. And this is a quote from the book Tragedy and Hope. It says, "The argument that the two parties should represent opposed ideals and policies, one, perhaps, of the right and the other from the left, is a foolish idea acceptable only to doctrinaire and academic thinkers. Instead, the two parties should be almost identical so that the American people can throw the rascals out." And whoever quoted this quote here is not quoting it exactly the way that it is in the book, because in Tragedy and Hope, "throw the rascals out" is in quotes. Carroll Quigley puts it in quotes, "throw the rascals out." So why does he put it in quotes? Because that's what the electorate is saying. The electorate is saying, we're going to throw these rascals out every 4 years. And that's why he puts it in quotes. So that instead the two parties should be almost identical so that the American people, the electorate, can throw the rascals out at any election without leading to any profound or extensive shifts in policy. That you're not really throwing the rascals out. You're just, I mean, you may think that you're throwing the rascals out, but what you're doing is just trading the R rascal for the D rascal. That's what Carroll Quigley says. It's like, says that you're going to get a rascal no matter what, that without leading to any profound or extensive shifts in policy. It's the same policy, just new rascals. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what happens in any election, because these are the guys that really run our country. This is what we're talking about when we talk about the deep state. That we're talking about these guys, the spies who lie. That's who we're talking about. We're talking about the deep state. That it doesn't matter if you elect Donald Trump, Republican, Joe Biden, Democrat. It doesn't matter. There's not going to be any extensive shifts in policy because these guys really run the country. The deep state is who runs the country. That's what Carroll Quigley is talking about here. He says, throw the rascals out without leading to any profound or extensive shifts in policy. Then it should be possible to replace it every 4 years, if necessary, by another party, which will be none of the things, but will still pursue with new vigor approximately the same basic policies. With new vigor. So let's go back to the 2016 election and talk about the 2016 election a little bit. And then we'll get back into talking about what these guys did in the 2020 election. So in the 2016 election, we were told that Hillary Clinton lost for two reasons. This is what Democrats believe why Hillary Clinton lost. Two reasons that they give. One is James Comey, and that the letter that James Comey wrote to Congress just days before the election, that contributed to her losing. And then also the press conference that James Comey did that we talked about a little bit in the last podcast in July, basically letting her off from the crimes that she committed. But Democrats felt that he shouldn't have given that press conference and called her extremely careless and everything that he called her. So Democrats blame James Comey. And then they also blame Russia. Now, the Russia part was two-pronged. They said that Russia hacked into using these different groups, Fancy Bear and Cozy Bear, and these are cutouts, and they hacked into the DNC, and they hacked into the DCCC, and then they hacked John Podesta, who was Hillary Clinton's campaign manager. They hacked into his Gmail account and got his email, and then they gave all this stuff to WikiLeaks, and WikiLeaks leaked it out just before the election, and that was part of the Russian part. But the other part of the Russian interference in our election was what they called an influence campaign. Keyword, influence. And they say that Russia bought $100,000 worth of ads on Facebook, and they used those ads to target voters in specific areas with messaging, and they influence those voters to not vote for Hillary Clinton and to vote for Trump. It was a influence campaign, is what they told us. But we know the real reason that Hillary Clinton lost that election, and the real reason that she lost that election has nothing to do with James Comey, and it don't have anything to do with Russia. The real reason she lost the election is because of Lippman's 13 keys, and 6 of these keys were turned on the Democrats, the party in power, and she was going to lose no matter what. No matter what Comey did, no matter what Russia did, she was going to lose. Let's listen to Lippman here, Alan Lippman, Professor Alan Lippman, talk about the election in 2016 and why Hillary Clinton lost.
And the keys made evident the vulnerability of the incumbent Democrats, who lost big time in the midterms of 2014, didn't have a sitting president running, had a contentious primary battle, had to deal with a third party that looked pretty strong through most of the campaign, didn't have a major policy accomplishment in the second term, didn't have a big splashy foreign policy success in the second term, like the dispatch of bin Laden in the first term.
So those are Lippman's keys. And if you look at, everything he says is right. In 2014, Democrats lost big in 2014 in Obama's last congressional elections. You had the contest key turned because of Bernie Sanders. You had the incumbency key turned because of Barack Obama was ending, so he wasn't running as an incumbent. You had the no policy change. There was no policy change in Obama's second term, so that's already 4 keys. You had the scandal because of her email. Her email was a huge scandal, so I guess that you can say that James Comey contributed to the scandal key. She wasn't charismatic at all. There was no foreign policy success. All these keys, more than 6 keys turned on her. So that's the real reason that she lost. But they told us that it was because of Russia and that it was because of James Comey. That's not true. But let's look at what they told us about Russia, because that's what I really want to focus on, is this influence campaign. Because who's not being influenced? Everything's right. It's illegal to influence. No, you're being influenced all the time on a daily basis. People are trying to sell you things. They're trying to influence you to take part in their organizations, trying to influence you to vote for this candidate or to support this issue or to buy this product. It's all about influence. But for some reason, Russia was bad because they influence. And there is no evidence. There's no evidence that Russia did any of this. You have seen no evidence that Russia hacked into the DNC. The DNC never gave the FBI their servers to do a forensic investigation of the servers to see exactly who hacked. They gave them an image, but they hired a private company, CrowdStrike, to actually do their forensic investigation. Now, answer this question. Why didn't the DNC turn over their servers to the FBI so the FBI could do their own independent investigation to find out if Russia had, if they had done what you claimed that they had done as far as the hacking goes? I mean, Podesta, he got his Gmail hacked, but it wasn't really hacked. It was spearphished. Someone sends him an email telling him to open up this, link, and they get his password. That's what happened to him. That could have been anyone. Anyone could have spearphished Podesta. So WikiLeaks, let me just say this. When WikiLeaks first came out in the early 2000s, exposing the Bush administration and the war in Afghanistan, the war in Iraq, you remember Bradley Manning leaked all this information to WikiLeaks. WikiLeaks publishes it, but they don't publish it by themselves. They publish it with the New York Times and with the Guardian, all these people, and it was extremely explosive, showing what the George Bush administration was doing in these foreign wars. The Democrats loved Julian Assange. The Democrats loved WikiLeaks because they were exposing Democrats. But in 2016, the Democrats started hating WikiLeaks because WikiLeaks was part of this exposure of Hillary Clinton. We talked a few weeks ago about the Access Hollywood tape. And how whoever had the Access Hollywood tape had it for 10 years and held it through all of the primaries, held it, through all of the election and waited to October. So it could be an October surprise. And they had the women that were represented by Gloria Allred and her daughter ready to go. They had this huge plan. And then when they released that Access Hollywood tape on the same day, Julian Assange from WikiLeaks releases all of these DNC emails showing how the Democratic Party was rigging the primary for Hillary Clinton against Bernie Sanders. All this stuff talking about how can we make a play and use his Jewish religion to hurt him and call him a Jew. This was all in the emails, and the Hillary Clinton campaign, they accused Russia and said, this is all Russia. Russia is the one that put out these emails. They're the ones doing this influence campaign. And it was a huge scandal. It led into Donald Trump being elected and then being investigated in a special counsel investigation with Robert Mueller and all that stuff. And WikiLeaks always contended, and Julian Assange has always said that he didn't get the emails from Russia, that none of this stuff came from Russia. And they have yet to prove that any of this stuff came from Russia. So there was one participant that they tell us who was a Russian cutout, and Guccifer 2.0 is who they said was one of these actors who was hacking into Podesta's emails, hacked into all these other emails. And this Guccifer 2.0 persona is the one who gave these emails to WikiLeaks. There's no evidence of this. This is what they tell us. They've seen zero evidence of this. Now, there's a real hacker, a real person who we know, who we've seen speak. This is an interview with the real Guccifer from Romania, the real Guccifer persona. And I want you to listen to this clip about him. Guccifer is how we learned Hillary Clinton had the private email server, and he claims to have hacked her. A lot of people say that they hacked into her unsecure server that she had there at her house while she was Secretary of State. But I want you to listen to a little bit of the real Guccifer and Guccifer 2.0. We have no idea who that is. That's not a real person. Let me just say that. We have no idea who that person is, but this is the real Guccifer, the Romanian hacker. Let's listen to him.
NBC News has confirmed that the FBI has interviewed several of Hillary Clinton's top aides in the investigation into her private email account, including her close confidant, Huma Abedin. And tonight, in his first American television...
Now, who was it? Remember, Huma Abedin was married to Anthony Weiner, remember.
Her close confidant, Huma Abedin. And tonight, in his first American television interview, the Romanian hacker known as Guccifer, who was the first to reveal that Clinton was using a private email address while she was Secretary of State, makes alarming new charges. Senior investigative correspondent Cynthia McFadden went to a Romanian prison to interview him.
When Hillary Clinton says that her server is absolutely safe, you're laughing.
That's a lie.
That's a lie.
It is a lie.
Yes?
Yes.
It's not safe.
It's not safe at all.
His name is Marcel Lahel Lazar. He's better known as Guccifer. Since we talked to him, he's been extradited to the U.S. to face a variety of hacking crimes against American political figures, including Clinton confidant Sidney Blumenthal.
You hacked your way into the Bush family emails. You hacked your way into Colin Powell's emails. You uncovered that Hillary Clinton was using a private email.
Much more. Sure.
And many more.
Yes.
But it's his
Very
new
close.
claims that
I
are
was
truly
reading the news
explosive.
every
Guccifer says he got into Clinton's private server itself.
By running a scan, I found that server was completely unsecured.
So he says he got into Hillary Clinton's private server where she had all this top secret emails and information. He says that he got in. James Comey, let's listen to what James Comey says here.
With respect to potential computer intrusion by hostile actors, we did not find direct evidence that Secretary Clinton's personal email domain, in its various configurations since 2009, was hacked successfully. But given the nature of the system and of the actors potentially involved, we assess we would be unlikely to see such direct evidence. We do assess that hostile actors gained access to the private commercial email accounts of people with whom Secretary Clinton was in regular contact from her personal account. We also assess that Secretary Clinton's use of a personal email domain was both known by a large number of people and readily apparent.
So he basically says that that we haven't found any hard evidence that hostile actors hacked into her servers, but if they did, we assess that we wouldn't even be able to know it. That's what James Comey says. So Guccifer here is saying that, yes, I got in. I did hack into her servers where she had tons of top secret information. I mean, Hillary Clinton, the fact that Hillary Clinton broke the law is just, it's undeniable. The point that I was trying to make in last week's podcast, that if Trump wanted to come in and lock her up, he absolutely could have, because she broke the law. All right, now, Vault 7. Let's talk about Vault 7 here. Vault 7, we'll read this paragraph right here. Vault 7 is a series of documents that WikiLeaks begun to publish on March 7th, 2017, detailing the activities and capabilities of the United States Central Intelligence Agency. So WikiLeaks, this is why Julian Assange is being persecuted the way that he's being persecuted for this more than anything, because someone from within the CIA and within the intelligence agencies leaked this huge cache of documents, talking about the CIA's tools that they had to hack into people's phones, hack into their computers, hack into their TVs, to listen to what they're doing, to spy on people. So someone within the agency leaked this to Julian Assange, and then Julian Assange put this out. And this is when it was it was a huge, I mean, this became a huge problem for the CIA and these intelligence agencies. And this is why he's really being persecuted. But I have a clip here about Vault 7, and I want you to listen to what we learned from WikiLeaks' Vault 7 leak.
WikiLeaks released thousands of documents and files that it says expose hacking tools used by the Central Intelligence Agency. The leaks purportedly show that the CIA is capable of hacking smartphones, computer operating systems, automobiles, messenger applications, and even internet-connected televisions. The series of files, dubbed Vault 7, consists of 8,761 documents and files allegedly from the CIA's Center for Cyber Intelligence. Though many of the tools detailed in the documents are the kind of things you'd expect from an intelligence agency, they provide an unprecedented blueprint for how the CIA could hack individuals they're spying on. Here's how they could work. Say CIA operatives are investigating a suspect in France we'll call John. According to the leaks, CIA hackers operate out of the U.S. consulate in Frankfurt, Germany, using it as a base to cover Europe, the Middle East, and Africa. From the confines of the consulate, the CIA can track John's activities around France. The CIA purportedly has a few techniques it can use to hack into versions of Apple's iOS, the mobile operating system used in iPhones. The WikiLeaks documents detail malware, allegedly used as a hacking tool, that appears to remain on an iPhone even after it has been rebooted, a technique known as persistence. To gain access to phones and other devices, the CIA would exploit zero-day bugs, previously unknown flaws in the operating system's code, that they would collect and store. If the CIA hacks John's phone, it can bypass the encryption of messenger apps like WhatsApp, Signal, Telegram, and Confide that John uses, and collect voice, audio, and messages before the applications encrypt John's text. To track his movements, the agency can activate the camera and microphone on John's phone without him knowing, and retrieve his geolocation. Even if his cell phone's powered off, the documents describe how the CIA can hack other internet-connected devices to monitor John's activity. Working with British intelligence, the CIA developed an attack that can place Samsung smart TVs in a fake off mode. So while the TV appears turned off, in reality, it's functioning as a bug and recording his conversations in the living room. The CIA also apparently has the capability to target John's wireless internet router to connect to his infected computer or access files. American CIA hackers can also allegedly leave false breadcrumbs to mask the operation's fingerprints and make it appear that it was carried out by another country. That can be done by inserting malware components from a known Chinese, Russian, or Iranian hacking operation, for example.
Did you guys hear that? So that's the important part that I wanted you to hear that we learned in the Vault 7 documents, that the CIA can hack into computers and then leave breadcrumbs to make it look like it was Russia. That's what we learned in Vault 7, that the CIA can hack into people's computer, and then when you do a forensic search, then you see that it's Russia or Iran or Israel or any of these other countries, whoever they want to frame, is what we learned in Vault 7 from WikiLeaks.
American CIA hackers can also allegedly leave false breadcrumbs to mask the operation's fingerprints and make it appear that it was carried out by another country. That can be done by inserting malware components from a known Chinese, Russian, or Iranian hacking operation. So
we've never seen any evidence, zero evidence, that Russia actually hacked into the DNC, that it was Russia. WikiLeaks, Julian Assange has alluded that it was a internal leak within the DNC from Seth Rich or someone else that downloaded these things on a thumb drive and then transmitted it to WikiLeaks. There's been zero evidence. And the only person, I'll argue with anybody about this and debate anybody about this, because the only thing they'll tell you, well, Republicans in the Senate report that the Republicans said, well, what evidence did they use? Did they show you any evidence? They just claim this. No, there has been zero forensic evidence that Russia was responsible for hacking into John Podesta, the DNC, or the DCCC. And for that matter, the influence campaign on Facebook, the only thing they know is that whoever paid for those ads on Facebook used rubles. So you're telling me that the CIA can't take money and convert it into rubles and then buy Facebook ads to frame? This is a frame job, is what I'm telling you. So when they first came out with this frame job. They didn't show you any evidence at all. All they did was tell you that the 17 intelligence agencies agree. 17 intelligence. What, you don't believe the 17? You don't believe our 17 intelligence agencies? No, show us the evidence. Evidence are 17 intelligence agencies. 17 intelligence agencies. Why would you want to see evidence if our 17 intelligence agencies say this?
Okay, so since we're not going to agree on the part that isn't completely now nailed down by law enforcement, let's just go to the part that's incontrovertible, which is that the Russians meddled in the election. All 17 of our intelligence agencies say that. You would agree to that, right?
Well,
all 17 of our intelligence agencies say that. All 17 of our intelligence agencies say that.
So we can get into the back and forth and into the minutia of that letter you're talking about, because actually
letter.
The 17 agencies you're talking about.
17 agencies have said Russia did.
So do you think the president didn't win the election?
Answer my question first. All 17 of whose side are you on?
I'm on America's side.
Okay, but then all of our intelligence agencies say this. Russia meddled in our election. Please admit that.
You'd have to ask Russia whether they tried.
Oh, for fuck's sake.
How would I know?
Okay, but then you're like your boy Trump, you're saying you don't believe our intelligence agencies.
No, what I'm saying is this.
Well, you don't.
The president. Well, let me answer.
This is what they say.
The president won the election fair and square.
That's not the point or the question.
Whether there was an attempted meddling, again, how would I know? You're asking me if that's
because our intelligence agencies, all of them, say there was. Okay.
See, it's not that because of this evidence, this piece of evidence, or because we have this direct, evidence that they did this. No, it's because our 17 agencies said. I mean, we heard it over and over again.
Because our intelligence agencies, all of them, say there was,
and that's not even true.
Okay. Well, see, Boris, this is why we are having a problem.
Well, what's the so what?
Because I can't even get you to come to the place that all people, including the Republicans, agree is the fact that Russia did meddle in our election.
Well, it's not quite agreed as fact, but was there a seeming attempt at meddling?
It is settled science.
Okay.
This type of disinformation campaign is intentionally difficult to find hardcore proof of. It's other factors. And what the experts say is that this couldn't have been faked, that it's not one factor.
It couldn't have been faked.
100 factors that point to Russia. They say it's the forensics, it's the digital fingerprints.
There was no forensics.
The malware, the encryption keys, the specific pieces of code, that all of them point to Russia, and none of them points to anyone other than Russia.
Какие отпечатки пальцев? What fingerprints, or hooves prints, or horn prints? What are you talking about? IP addresses, they can be invented. There are very many specialists that can invent or fix it up. A kid of yours can send it. Your girl that is 3-year-old can perpetrate such an attack.
This is not my allegation. This is the conclusion of the 17 U.S. intelligence agencies, 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 and the others that I mentioned. But what they say is that Russia not only hacked into the Democratic National Committee and hacked into Hillary Clinton's campaign emails, but that they also perpetuated a campaign of disinformation that involved putting out fake news stories through Russian-controlled entities like RT and Sputnik, and that those then were pushed by aggregators and what they're called bots on Twitter and elsewhere, and specifically targeted at voters who were potentially pro-Trump.
So that's the influence. That's the influence campaign. So that's the other accusations. It's two-pronged, like I said. It's the hacking and putting out that hacked information, but what she's talking about here is the Facebook ad and the messaging to influence. I don't understand. Everything is influence. We're being influenced, but in every single minute, there is an attempt to influence us. If the electorate is not sophisticated enough and they're falling for the influence of the media, you're telling me that MSNBC is not trying to influence me. You're telling me that CNN's not trying to influence me. You're telling me that Israel is not trying to influence me. You're telling me that that I'm not trying to that you have groups like CARE. You're telling me that CARE is not trying to influence me. Yes, people are going to try to influence you. There's nothing wrong with that. That's not. But again, this goes back to the idea of the in-kind contribution. But by doing, if you believe that Russia put out messages on Facebook to influence people, that's an in-kind contribution. That's a legal contribution that Russia is making to Donald Trump. So back to Hunter Biden and the 2020 election. When the Hunter Biden laptop came out and the 51 intelligence agents backed up Joe Biden and signed a letter saying that this bears the hallmarks of Russian disinformation, it was an in-kind contribution. This is the most, because I'm getting ready to show you, without a shadow of a doubt, we know that the laptop was real and that the laptop belonged to Hunter Biden now. But the way that it was sold to us back then to help Joe Biden, to avoid Joe Biden having this negative press just before the election, these intelligence agents interfered in the election. They launched a influence campaign, so to speak. They wanted to influence the electorate that the laptop, which was 100% real and has tons of crimes on it, tons of felony crimes on it. I mean, activities with prostitutes, all the drug stuff. I mean, tons of stuff. This guy leaves it at a computer repair shop, and he's so in a daze that he leaves it there. And these deep state people, they lie. They lie for Joe Biden, and they give Joe Biden a contribution, an illegal contribution in the 2020 election. You remember this article from Time, headline, "The Secret History of the Shadow Campaign to Save the 2020 Election." And then this is my favorite paragraph. "That's why the participants want the secret history of the 2020 election told. Even though it sounds like a paranoid fever dream, a well-funded cabal of powerful people ranging across industries and ideologies working together behind the scenes to influence perceptions." They're working to influence. To influence perceptions, change rules and laws, steer media coverage, and control the flow of information. That's what it says there in that Time article. To influence and control the flow of information. And how'd that work? Remember this interview that Trump did right before the election with Leslie Stahl on 60 Minutes? Take a listen.
You know, this is 60 Minutes, and we can't put on things we can't verify.
You won't put it on because it's bad for Biden.
We can't put on things we can't verify.
Leslie.
You know what you told me a long time ago when I asked why you keep saying fake in the media?
Yeah.
You said to me, I say that because I need to discredit you so that when you say negative things about me, no one will believe.
I don't have to discredit you.
But that's what you told me.
You've discredited yourself.
You told me that.
Leslie, you've discredited yourself. When you say that you're not going to cover Biden, you're going to ask him what flavor ice cream he has, okay?
That's not
Instead
me.
of why did Hunter get $3.5 million from Moscow? Instead of why is an energy company paying your son $183,000 a month or whatever they're paying him, and he has no experience in energy. You know, you discredit yourself. I don't have to discredit you.
So this story about Hunter and his laptop, some repair shop found it. The source is Steve Bannon and Rudy Giuliani.
I don't know anything about that. I just know it's a laptop.
So it's funny why she's saying this, that the source is Steve Bannon and Rudy Giuliani. We can't verify this. The FBI had the laptop at this time when she's having this interview. The FBI had the laptop. They could have verified it. Why couldn't they verify? They verified that Russia. They sure did verify that Russia hacked into the DNC pretty quickly. Why couldn't they verify this laptop? And Leslie Stahl, listen to this.
The source is Steve Bannon and Rudy Giuliani.
I don't know anything about that. I just know it's a laptop, and they haven't.
And you're making this one of the hottest, most important issues in your rallies.
It's a very important issue to find out whether or not a man's corrupt who's running for president, who's accepted money from China and from Ukraine and from Russia.
So embarrassing.
Yeah, I think
it's embarrassing that I mean, that's our media. It is so disgusting. And then look at the other one, Christian Welker here in the debate when Trump brings it up again. Listen.
If this stuff is true about Russia, Ukraine, China, other countries, Iraq, if this is true, then he's a corrupt politician. Right. So don't give me the stuff about how you're this innocent baby. Joe, they're calling you a corrupt politition.
Nobody. President Trump, I want to stay on the issue of race. We're talking about the issue.
From hell.
Listen to Christian Welker. Mr. Trump, we don't want to talk about the laptop. We want to stay on the issue of race, which is bad for you.
Nobody.
President Trump, I want to stay on the issue of race. We're talking about the issue.
From hell.
President Trump, we're talking about race right now.
So the media is totally backing up. Not only are the intelligence agents backing up Joe Biden, contributing to his campaign, the media is totally contributing to his campaign. Leslie Stahl, Kristen Welker here, she shuts him down, doesn't let him talk about the laptop. I want to continue talking about race. Yeah, like that's important. Talking about race instead of Joe Biden's crackhead son and all of the illegal activities on his laptop. Let's talk about that. Let's talk about race instead of that.
Stay on the issue of race. President Trump,
and I have to respond to that.
Please,
because look,
very quickly.
There are 50 former national intelligence folks.
These guys.
Who said that what he's accusing me of is a Russian plant.
Yeah, a Russian plant.
They have said that this has all the 5 former heads of the CIA.
5 former heads of the CIA. Who's he talking about? He's talking about this guy right here, DCI. Gates, DCI. Michael Hayden, DCI. John Brennan. Who's the other? DCI. Leon Panetta. That's 4. Who's the other one? Who's the other one? So I got DCI John Brennan, DCI Leon Panetta, DCI Michael Hayden, DCI Gates. I don't know who the 5th one that he is talking about, but that's what he's talking about. There's 5 DCIs across different parties, and they all back me up. This is Russian disinformation.
It's a Russian plant. They have said that this has all the 5 former heads of the CIA. Both parties say what he's saying is a bunch of garbage. Nobody believes it except his and his good friend Rudy Giuliani.
You mean the laptop is now another Russia hoax?
That's exactly what.
This is where he's going.
No, the laptop is not Russia at all. The laptop is not Russia. I'm going to show you what the laptop is, but I'm going to show you some more clips. I can't show you all this. This is 20 minutes. This clip is 20 minutes of the media giving Joe Biden in-kind contributions by lying, saying that the laptop is Russia.
And tonight, the Trump campaign is accusing Twitter and Facebook of censorship after the social media companies blocked the spread of an unverified story about former Vice President Joe Biden's son and a laptop allegedly full of his old emails. It's a story raising concerns about whether it's real or just designed to sow confusion in the final weeks of the election.
It'd be real, lady.
Experts say it has all the hallmarks of information laundering.
This looks like your classic disinformation campaign.
Eric O'Neill is a former FBI operative.
Steal the information with a cyber attack, get the emails from Hunter Biden's account, and then put them on these laptops that are left at a repair store. And that's how the information is now laundered into the public.
Who do you think is behind this?
Well, the Russians would be my number one guess.
Social media outlets were quick to limit the spread of the story. Twitter briefly suspending the accounts of the Trump campaign and White House press secretary after they tried to share it.
They suspended tons of accounts on Twitter, the old Twitter before Elon got Twitter. They suspended tons of accounts. they blocked the New York. That's why the New York Post put out this article about the spies who lie, because the New York Post was the first to do the expose on the laptop, and Twitter blocked all those stories on the laptop. They wouldn't let anybody share the story. And
Facebook have limited the distribution of that Hunter Biden story. And last night, Twitter appeared to suspend the Twitter account of White House Press Secretary Kayleigh McEnany when she tried to share that story.
Damn. You know a story is shady when Facebook is saying, whoa, 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 whoa. Maybe people shouldn't see this.
For a long time, Giuliani has been openly working to dig up dirt and promote disinformation on the Bidens. And now, the Washington Post is also reporting that the intelligence community was so concerned that the Russians were using Giuliani to feed Russian disinformation to the president that they warned the White House about it last year. We're being told by two people who have been briefed on what the FBI is doing is that they're looking into whether these unverified emails about Hunter Biden published by the New York Post about foreign business dealings are part of the bigger Russian disinformation effort, which is well underway in these final days of the 2020 race. The intelligence community has said for months that Russia is very actively engaged in a disinformation campaign in the 2020 election.
These guys, intelligence community.
Against Joe Biden to denigrate his campaign in favor of President Trump.
I think there are a lot of issues related to this New York Post story that
John Brennan
reportedly referenced the Hunter Biden emails. And as I and several of my former colleagues have pointed out publicly, that it does bear the hallmarks of Russian disinformation.
Intel Committee Chair Adam Schiff, who said this discussion over Hunter Biden and the story that came out in the New York Post that is highly questionable and dubiously sourced is part of a Russian disinformation campaign.
Well, what I can tell you for sure is that Rudy Giuliani was the source of this hard drive and this information for the New York Post story. Also, the intelligence community has been saying repeatedly that Rudy Giuliani is the vehicle for Russian disinformation right now about Hunter Biden and the Bidens. To say that there's no evidence that somehow these emails and text messages or this hard drive is part of a potentially a Russian disinformation campaign doesn't make any sense to me, Hallie.
Hunter Biden story, which we haven't covered as much for journalistic reasons.
For journalistic reasons?
Don't put unverified disinformation on.
It's not every day where you see a headline like former New York City mayor, president's personal lawyer, and longtime friend, White House was warned that Rudy was the target of Russian intelligence operation to feed misinformation to Trump.
So the FBI had this laptop the entire time where all this stuff is going on, the entire time that the 51 intelligence officials. And something else that I noticed about these 51 intelligence officials, just looking at this picture, this is all 51 on the cover of the New York Post here. But what do you notice, about diversity? We're hearing a lot about diversity these days and DEI. And why isn't there any diversity in the intelligence community? Look at these guys. That's one of the first things that I noticed. All these white guys lying to make Joe Biden president and lying for him. I just thought that was interesting that there's no diversity in the intelligence community, but they want us to embrace diversity all the time. It's interesting. So what did we learn this week about the laptop that we were told over and over again in 2020 before that election, that this was Russian disinformation and that you couldn't believe it? What are we learning about that laptop now that Hunter Biden has been indicted and that he is in a trial in Delaware? What are we learning about that laptop today? Take a listen.
Now to the president's son, the first witness taking the stand in Hunter Biden's federal gun trial. The prosecution entering Hunter Biden's laptop as evidence and what the defense claimed today. ABC's Terry Moran at the courthouse tonight.
With his wife by his side, Hunter Biden today was back in federal court in Delaware for opening statements in his trial on felony gun charges. First Lady Jill Biden and Hunter's sister Ashley sat behind the defendant in a show of support, while prosecutor Derek Hines laid out the government's case, telling the jury no one is above the law.
No one is above the law. No one is above the law. There's plenty of people who are above the law. Our justice system stinks, people. It is completely unfair, just like our elections stink. This is the best case and the most clear case of election interference in the 2020 election that we have had yet. This is, you cannot say that it's interference in the election for Russia to do it, to interfere in the election in a influence campaign, and you can't say that it's and not say that it's also interference in an influence campaign, what these liars did before the 2020 election. You can't have it both ways. Either they're both election interference and wrong, or neither of them are election interference or wrong. But there's no evidence that Russia actually did what they told us and what they tell us that Russia did in 2016. But there's plenty of evidence about what these guys did in 2020. I had more that I wanted to share with you guys, but we'll probably get back into this in the next podcast on Monday. I hope you guys have a great weekend, and I'll see you on Monday. Thank you guys so much for listening.